Good afternoon. I'm Nicole Zumpano. I'm the Director of Distance Learning here at Triton. And we are going to chat about what elements help make a course, whether it's an online course or an in-person course, a great course. We were going to start with a brainstorming activity, asking what do you think makes a great course? Do you have anything off the top of your head that you think makes a great course?
Student interaction, for sure.
Student interaction. Donna, anything?
Yeah, doing anything to build a relationship with the students. So I do things like call or email.
Yes, relationships are huge.
Text also. I text like crazy with them.
Yep, absolutely. Good. All right, we'll keep going. So based on that, the initial question was if those elements transfer to an online or hybrid course, and they absolutely do, because at the end of the day, good pedagogy is good pedagogy. It doesn't matter what your modality it is, as long as you have all the solid elements of a course that makes it a great course, doesn't matter where you are presenting it. So here at Triton, we use Anthology's exemplary course program rubric to evaluate the courses here. And basically, this is a series of about 53 different standards that have to be met. Technically, there are 16 compulsory standards. Those compulsory standards basically are Anthology's way of saying these are non-negotiables. These have to be in all courses. We take those compulsory standards and we say any new courses that are developed here at Triton for online, they have to show evidence of that or we will not pass the course through peer review. So what we're going to do today is we are going to go through and take a look at Anthology's rubric. And in the rubric, there are 4 areas that it dives deep into: course design, interaction and collaboration, learner support, and assessment. And each one of those has different subcategories. So we're going to go through, I'm going to show you some examples, some places that in your course, whether it's online or face-to-face, you can implement these things. I should also stop and say that as we go through, outside of my role here at Triton, I'm an adjunct instructor. I teach for Michigan State, Dominican, and in the past have taught and developed courses for National Louis. So you're going to see a lot of my examples in here just so that you know where they're coming from. So first one we're going to get into is course design. Course design doesn't just mean the aesthetics of how your course is going to look. It of course talks about the structure and your organization, but we're also talking about how you are building your course between your objectives and your instructional strategy. So pedagogy is part of the course design element. What the rubric tells us is great courses are chunked, they're consistent, they're well organized, and they're enhanced with multimedia. And we're going to go through it. I'll give you some examples. So what I mean when I say they're chunked or they're segmented, essentially we're talking about being in modules. You don't just have an online shell and you have all of your content in one long page and just say, here's your course, go at it. They are segmented or chunked out. The language that you should use should always be consistent. So you see in one of my examples from one of my courses, I'm calling these weeks: week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5. The students know it's chunked. They know week 1, this is where I go. I also include the title or the subject that we're going to be talking about right after the title. Some people prefer to use module 1, module 2, module 3, that's fine, or even unit 1, 2, and 3. In my courses at Michigan State, we use unit as the language. But again, it's very clear to the students, they understand where it is they're supposed to go. Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3. So that is chunking. Information is lumped together, and it's consistent language. We also want to take a look and have consistent structure within our modules. So in my case, this is how I design my learning modules for my students. Module 4, I tell them what we're working on. I have 4 pages for my entire module 4. So the students only encounter 4 pages. The first page, they're going to see the course and the module learning objectives. The second page in mine they're going to see all of the content that they need to successfully learn what I'm trying to teach them. My third page is just an additional resource page. They don't even have to look at that if they're not interested. And my fourth page is rubrics. And that's an intentional design choice on my part, that I take everything they need and I put it essentially in one long page. And I'll show you what one of those looks like. The courses at Michigan State, those are pre-developed. They're phenomenal. You know, we basically facilitate them. You can see they have a lot more included in their modules, and they follow a rhythm of explore, create, and share. So the students will see that consistently, and they know from the beginning that explore is what they're going to learn, create is what they're going to have to do to demonstrate their learning, and then share, it's how they're going to share it with me or with the world, and so on. And they have some other elements. But again, you see in either case, there's a consistent structure throughout. These are two other examples of ways you can do it. These are not my favorite. I'm going to be upfront about that. We see this a lot here at Triton, where for week number 1, there's an overview folder, a lecture folder, resources folder, reading folder, quiz and discussion. I'm not saying it's wrong. Technically, you can pass with an exemplary rating if you have that. In my opinion, that is way too segmented. It doesn't help the students form a connection. It simply reads as here's a list of tasks you need to create. This is one that I helped develop at National Louis. They set the structure. I was the subject matter expert, so I had to fill it in. You'll see it's the same type of pattern. Overview, outcomes, activities, assignments, here's your videos. I didn't like it. But again, it wasn't my structure to design. This one I love. And this one, Susan Kaufman allowed me with permission to share this, a horticulture example. For this one, this is a hybrid course that she developed here. And you can see for week 1, she's got on campus. So this would be, even when the students are face-to-face, she's still using her Blackboard shell. And I love her structure. I've even considered emulating this myself. She starts off with the objectives and to-dos, but then what I love about this is for this week, she tells you, check out this folder. This is what I want you to do before class. This is what we're going to do during class. This is what you need to do after class. I love it. It's simplistic and it sets a path for students. Students know exactly where to go, what they need to prep for. It's not a list of read all these things, answer these questions, take this quiz. Now, the organization needs to continue inside your actual course content as well. The way, remember I said I have mine as one gigantic page. I don't just have one page of just static text and nothing more. My page is broken up into different elements. When I show you an example, I always start out for my students with a why this is important box. And basically what I'm doing is I'm not using the objective language. I'm just using real people language that basically says, this is an important topic because. And I should say my courses that I teach are technology and education for graduate students. So most of them are practicing educators. So I'm just telling them it's important that we know this because, just in a sentence or two. Next, I have listen. I always record a weekly overview video of myself, screencasting whatever we're working on, saying, this is what you're doing this week, this is what I think is important, this is what I expect from you. It's a way for me to build that relationship, like Donna said, to connect with them. Even if they see my little, face right here in the screencast, it's me talking to them, they can associate that. And it gives them a feel for what it is they're going to be working on. Then I have my learn section, and that's all the content for whatever subject we're working on that they're going to learn. I have the do section. This is what they have to do for me for that week. And then in this particular course, I have this little decide, and that little decide area is basically an extra tool. This particular course, and I use the same structure in all of my courses at Dominican, but this particular course is on educational technology tools to use in your practice, so the decide is just an extra tool. But basically, listen, learn, do, decide. That's my formatting for my students. And this I'll show you is a little recording. You can see what this looks like. I always start off with a picture. This week we're talking about active learning, why it's important. Here's my little screencast telling them. I keep them short, 4 minutes. Little narrative about the screencast. This is what I want them to learn. I've got an interactive poll, and this is what I want them to do. They have to do these assignments. So again, it's a choice that I make, a design decision to keep it on one page. Notice that I also have these little icons next to each area. That's a signal to the students. So when they see this little film reel, they know that's a video that they're supposed to watch. Learn is teacher in front of a lecture, and the do is a little check mark. They know just by seeing these. So I use those icons throughout all of it. Now, next thing you need to look at when you're talking about course design is you need to make sure that you have your goals and objectives. This is stuff that, believe it or not, we still have to tell people. Your goals and objectives have to be clearly written, they have to be measurable, and they have to be easily located for your students. Easily located, very easy ways to do this. Like I showed you in my example, I have one particular page that tells them point blank, here's your course, here's your module learning objectives. Realistically, do students look at those? Most probably don't. So that's, again, a design choice that I made to keep them off of my main content page. They're available to them, every single module. They can see them in multiple places. I also have this in my syllabus, and I also have it in a course resource folder as well. One thing that's interesting too, so clearly written and measurable, you'll see that I have these pointing over here. One thing I learned in a course not too long ago was making sure that the language that I used in my goals and objectives were measurable. So, you know, Bloom's taxonomy. So what I actually did is last winter, I took my goals for my course learning objectives and my module learning objectives, and I popped them into ChatGPT and basically said, take a look at these and make sure my language makes them measurable. And it spit it back out to me, and then from there, I was able to take it and say, okay, I like this, or no, this isn't right, and I was able to start to tweak that on my own as well. Notebook LM is another artificial intelligence program that does the same thing. With Notebook LM, I was able to go in and just make sure that all of my module learning objectives aligned to my course learning objectives. And that was just a side note. For the purposes of the anthology rubric, you just have to make sure you have your goals and objectives in multiple places. Your students can see them. You have to make sure that they're clearly written and they're measurable. This is another way to do it. In the rubric, they do tell you they want to know that your course activities are connected to goals and objectives. This is one that we put together when I was the SME for National Louis. Again, this isn't my favorite method, but it worked, where basically any activity or assignment that my students had to do, it showed a chart matching it to the module level outcomes and also to the course level outcomes. Another way you can do that is simply by adding a sentence right in your main content. You know, basically saying to students, by reading this or by completing this assignments is going to help you meet the goal of. And just even changing the language in real people language, you know, to the learning objective. Another thing they ask for is clear and structured guidance so that you are helping your students connect with the content. There are a few ways to do that. One is through roadmaps. So this is an example from one of the Michigan State courses. Remember, you see that same common language, explore, create, and share. And this is the very first page of every unit where they have this same format. We tell them what it is they're going to be working on. We tell them the learning objectives, and then we basically say, it's going to take you about 10 hours. We want you to explore this content, and then we expect you to take another 6 to 8 hours to create these items and share them out. So that's an example of a roadmap. This is an example of a checklist. Some professors like to do this. I used to do this. I've moved away from this, where again, I tell them this is what you need for module 1, this is what you're going to do, this is what you're going to do for module 2, and so on. I don't like these because I feel that they're too cold and impersonal. Some students love it. So if I come back to a point where I have my students complain and say I want that, I'll add it in. Right now, I don't see that. Instead of doing a roadmap or a checklist, what I actually do is I provide a course calendar that's printable, that has every single assignment, when it's due, so that they can actually see the structure. I also include on that course calendar when the modules open. I open my online modules early every week so that they have 2 weekends to work. Also, clear and structured guidance telling them how to engage with the content. Going back to those module overview videos, this is a great way to do that. And you can see here I am in the corner. I'm just recording. This one's a little bit longer. At 8 minutes, I try to never go that long. But this is week 1. So, of course, it's going to be a little bit longer. And basically, I open up the Canvas shell and I walk them through and say, here's where everything is, here's what our topic is, here's what I expect of you, and so on. Along with that, clear and structured guidance is to help them proceed through the course. So not just to engage with the content, but once they get online and they're working at their own speed, where are they supposed to go? The easiest way to do this is to have a start here folder or a start here page or a welcome to class here. This is from one of my courses. I do this in all my courses. I start with the course overview that tells them a little bit about what the class is, what it's not. And then you'll see here on my getting started page, I tell them point blank. First thing you do, number 1, look at the syllabus. Here's 2 ways you can get to it. I link to it too. I don't just say, look at the syllabus and then leave it. I link to it so they can click on it and get to it, because my job is to help them, not to test their skill to find the syllabus on their own. Number 2, in my courses, we blog. So I told them we're going to be blogging. You got to fill out this form for me and then get started. Go to module 1. See, I've linked module 1 and so on. So I'm helping set the path so that they can engage with the content and engage within my course on their own. Proceeding through the course, again, a getting started here folder. There's one right here. You can see course introduction, required materials, technology, very similar to sometimes things that we would see in a syllabus as well. And it is perfectly fine to have your content both separated out in a get started or welcome module, and also to have it in the syllabus a second place so that students can find the information either place. We do this also in the online pedagogy courses here at Triton. We've got a start here, welcome and course overview. And then we have a very page. What I did was I numbered this. So this is O because it's module 0, 0.1. So the participants can easily see, oh, I go to 1, then I go to 2, then I go to 3. I'm helping set the path for them. LMS tools are efficiently used to reduce the labor of intensity. Simple, in a nutshell, one of the things that can mean is like when I said linking the word syllabus and not just expecting them to go find the syllabus, but actually linking and helping them get to it. That's what that means in the rubric. Some of the rubric things are very easy, to score on. So providing links, and then how-tos and help guides. As I mentioned, my students blog, so I've created cheat sheets to help them blog. Why? Because I want them to enjoy it. They're always going to be frustrated in the beginning, especially if it's something new that they're doing. So I want to set the path for them to take the cognitive overload off of some of the decisions that they're going to make by doing that. And you can see how to and help guides. In my very first module, I have more than those 4 pages because it's the very first one. I've got a separate page for blog resources. I'm an extreme advocate of multimodal content, so I've got a page on that as well. And again, I'm helping to set the path for them. Multimodality, again, in the rubric, technology to enhance learning experiences use, that's in the anthology rubric. When we're talking about multimodal resources, you can see there's a number of different things that should be in your course. Technically, multimodality is 2 modalities or more. So if you have links and a video, you're considered multimodal. Today's students, you really need to be using other things as well. And this complements and falls into the representation area of universal design for learning. Just some comments from my students in my course evaluations. You know, the kids have talked about, when I say kids, they're, you know, practicing educators. These students have talked about they liked having different things to look on. Also in the rubric, for course design, technologies are used in a way that transcend traditional teacher-centered instruction. So you are using technology just to go beyond saying, here's my PowerPoint, watch this video, and move on. Some ways to do this, as I mentioned before, blogging. I also have my students do social deconstructions. And basically a social deconstruction is when they are all within the same document and they are able to highlight, underline, make comments about items in the document, and then they are able to communicate with each other as well. Flipgrid. This is an older program that used to be free to everyone. Now it's rolled into Microsoft. So it's not as easily accessible. But what I loved about Flipgrid when they had it is you can give the students a prompt, and then the students were able to come in and create a short video answering that prompt. And then from there, they can comment on each other as well. And again, you know, I received a lot of really positive feedback on it. The students liked being able to do that. They liked that everything wasn't a traditional discussion post and then answer to people. They liked having the technology be used. Polls, super easy thing to do. Create interactive polls that have to do with the content, embed them into your website. I created these in Canva, which is a free program. Created the poll, embedded it directly in. So this does work, and this would work in Blackboard as well, because you can embed HTML. Content curation. This is another way I've used technology to transcend traditional teacher-centered instruction. With content curation, I've asked my students to use basically bookmarking software to create collections that they can use in their professional practice. So in this particular case, I had a librarian create a collection on diverse young author literatures, young adult literature. This one, multimedia use in the classroom as well. And I require my students not only to create these collections of resources, but they have to be multimodal. So they can't give me 10 YouTube videos and call it a day. They have to give me some YouTube videos, some podcasts, you know, in this case, they use TikTok, maybe some articles, some PDFs, because again, they need to understand the importance of multimodality as well. And then finally, one other way that I do this is with my syllabus. I take my syllabus and I do the traditional, you know, university sanctioned paperwork, which turns out to be 10 or 15 pages. But then I also pull out the guts of what I think my students want to know right away. What are the course dates? How do I get a hold of you? How am I going to be graded? What's your late policy? I make a web page, just a one-page web page that they see what they need to see. And then I tell them, of course, absolutely make sure that you are reading the full one as well. One thing I've also started doing with Notebook LM, that was that AI program I mentioned earlier, I actually created a podcast about my course based off of my syllabus, my rubrics, and I think it was my course calendar. I uploaded all of that, and I can just say, click audio file, and it will generate an AI audio file. So my students have the ability to interact with my class content, either through this webpage, through the traditional syllabus, or through the audio file as well. The audio file I send to them before the class starts. So about a week before, pre-course communication, I tell them, you want to know a little bit about what we're doing? Listen to that. So again, all of those examples of ways to use technology that are beyond traditional teacher-centered instruction. And that's one of the rubric areas. And then the last area of course design is accessibility, which, as everyone's aware, we are in a big push to make sure everything is accessible. One of the things that they want you to do is to make sure that this allows each learner to interact with the content according to their preference. This is already a win for using Blackboard, because we use Blackboard program. Ally will actually take your content, and it will create alternative formats of your content, and the students will see the ability to download it in that way. So that's one thing that's pretty much already done for you in terms of accessibility, and then you need to go in and make sure that you are working on your text, images, and other multimedia to make sure they're accessible. Everything has to be accessible. I have links for you to resources that I've created to enhance knowledge about accessibility. The Design with Access part will give you some of the main things that you need to be aware of in your design. And then this fall also I created test cards, because some people want the ability to just cut out a card and work on one accessibility thing at a time and then work their way through. So in a nutshell, when we're looking at area number 1 of the anthology rubric, you want to make sure that your content is chunked in modules. You want to make sure you have multimodal resources, and you want to make sure it's accessible. That's the big takeaway from that area. The next area of the rubric talks about interaction and collaboration. And here we're talking about strategies, building a learning community. So that's where that relationships piece comes in. And also your interaction logistics. That's more of your structure of your courses. The rubric tells us that course activities must include interactive components. They should promote critical reflection, and they should align with your learning objectives. Some ways to do that are ones that I'm sure you're very familiar with, especially group projects, discussions. As long as your students have the opportunity to interact with each other, that's going to meet that criteria. Discussions, one of the things that we do at Michigan State as well is, this is, I guess, another way to hit that using technology to transcend learning, but we use Slack, the communication app, and we have our students respond to each other in Slack as well. So that is one type of discussion that takes them out of the LMS and puts them in basically a real life situation where they might be communicating with other people from work outside of the discussion post. With collaboration activities, they should be intentional. They should obviously, of course, reinforce your content and address your learning outcomes. But the rubric also points to the fact that beyond those two, they should also help build workplace useful skills for students, so that students have an understanding of what they're learning is going to help them when they go out and they get a job. So what I do is I have a statement within my syllabus that just talks about employability skills and just basically tells my students, as they're learning new ideas about integrating technology, there's going to be other soft skills that are going to benefit them in the course. Self-directed learning, technology competency, multimedia design, problem solving, time management, communication, creativity, and so on, teamwork, leadership. All of these things they're going to get by taking the class. And these are things that can help them when they go out into the job market if they're not already there. Learner to learner and learner to instructor interaction should be required. Many times this will come in the form of your discussion responses to each other, group projects, feedback. You can also have surveys and check-ins with replies. So one of the things we do at Michigan State, the students have to take a mid-semester survey where they basically talk about their effort, how they're learning, how they think things are going. And then I'm required to email them back and basically acknowledge their survey results, so I know who's saying what in these particular surveys. I also, when I do my weekly recap emails to the students, I put shout outs in. And I might say, Liz had a great blog post this week. She included A, B, and C. Or I really like the statement that Jeff made about his students when he said A, B, C, and so on. It helps build a relationship. It helps shows learner to instructor communication, because it tells them I'm reading their work and I'm recognizing their work. When I do that, I also keep a checklist, almost like a class list, and I write down what weeks I gave what students shout outs so that I'm not targeting the same 3 students. There are students in my class, they will never get a shout out because they just don't produce the work that would warrant a shout out. But I try very hard to make sure I get as many students as I think are legitimately doing work that deserves a shout out. For those high flyers, that would get something every single week because those people are just great, sometimes I'll email them on the side and just say, I love this, but I already, used your name the last 3 weeks, I can't do it again. And they're just happy to be acknowledged in that way. Sense of community. This is also part of the rubric. It is very clear that your course activities should be designed to build a sense of community, especially when you are talking about an asynchronous course online. A couple different ways I've done this in the past. Class spirit challenges. These have been optional. They are not required. But I will tell you, anytime you ask students to tell you or show you pictures of their pets, or tell them your favorite, or have them tell you their favorite music, they want to talk about themselves. So it's a way to help them form connections to each other in a non-threatening way. Oh, I've got a poodle, or oh, I love that band, or did you hear, I saw so-and-so in concert. It's just an informal way to help build community. Another way I do it, in one of my courses, we do some foreshadowing. In this particular course, we are foreshadowing before a unit on media literacy and basically interpreting images. So I asked them to go into their camera roll and pick a photo to add to this particular discussion post that they hold the copyright to, that's appropriate for all of us to see, and to post it with no text or anything. And then the next week, the students go in and they comment on each other's photographs, basically trying to determine what the mood of the image is and what it's trying to convey. And then the original author has the opportunity to go back in and correct them and so on. Again, it's an informal way to get them communicating and talking with each other. Also, finally, rubrics. When we are using rubrics or scoring guidelines, those are a must. You must have rubrics and scoring guidelines in your courses. You want to make sure that they are clearly written, and you do want to make sure they are action-oriented. And this is something that just dawned on me not too long ago. I'm like, I don't know if my rubrics are action-oriented. So basically what I did was, one of my final project rubrics, I took it, I stuck it into Gemini, which is Google's AI program, and I put in a prompt basically saying, these documents are from my graduate asynchronous course on instructional technology. Students create a portfolio. Please use my existing prompts and current rubric to make it more action-oriented. And again, it was my rubric, so I was able to take it and manipulate it. I got results. I got a brand new rubric. I haven't yet gone through and decided if I'm going to use it and weed through it. All right, so when it comes to interaction and collaboration, the key is to make sure you are offering your students ways to connect with each other, ways to connect with you. This is such a powerful statement. Students want to learn from you. So they don't want you to go in their online course and say, read chapter 3, look at this PowerPoint from the publisher and answer this question. They want to read from you. They signed up even for your online asynchronous class to learn from you and your expertise. So you want to make sure that your courses always have ways for you to engage with your students. All right, halfway through. These will go a little bit quicker. These, I want to say the course design has the most standard elements in the rubric. Assessment, not too much. Obviously, with your assessments, we need to make sure that we're looking at learner expectations, the design, and also giving them the opportunity to self-assess. That's important. So, language you see here in red, this is right out the rubric. It's clear to the students how performance is going to be evaluated. Your assessments align to your goals, objectives, and content. Your instructions are written clearly. And then also they do suggest in the template, or I'm sorry, in the rubric, you should always provide examples of quality work. So for that, what I do is after I give them an assignment, I always say, need an example. Jessa gave me permission to share, check hers out. You know, as an alternative to examining yourself, enhance the lesson, blah, 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 blah. Need an example? Gabby gave me permission to share. And in terms of asking my students permission to share, one of the things that I do is I have a form that just says consent to share work. And at the end of every one of my course, I basically say throughout the course, you've been asked to create many projects that might be relevant to other educators. When exemplars are created, I'd like your permission to share these examples with other students. And I give them the option to say, absolutely share my work. Please give me credit and inform me if my work is shared. And they give me an email to inform them. Or they could say, yes, you can share my work. You don't need to contact me when you do. Or they say, no, please don't share my work. Now, realistically, the students that say, no, don't share my work, it's not work I would share anyway, unless I was to say this is not an example of what to do, and I would never do that because it was tied to a specific student. But I find that students that also don't want me to share their work, they just don't fill out the form. And if they don't fill out the form, you know, I won't share their work. Sometimes if they've got such amazing work and they don't fill out the form that I want to share it, I'll contact them, you know, and just say, hey, you didn't fill this out, but you did a great job on this. I'd love to share it. Formative, summative assessments. They should occur regularly. Unit quizzes, final projects, self-checks as well. And again, complementing this, you should be using multiple types of assessment. You shouldn't just be giving all quizzes and nothing else, or you know, one unit test and nothing else. Assessments should also be designed to mimic authentic environments. So again, using case studies, and I do in my courses a lot of portfolio projects because I want them to be able to find meaning in the work and be able to use it after the course is over. In some instances, even though my classes are meant for practicing educators, I get a lot of librarian students in the program. I am perfectly happy with them modifying my projects to fit their learning context. They just need to give me a heads up. Opportunities for self-assessment. This is where your journal entries come in, and then going back to those mid-course surveys. With my mid-course surveys, one of the areas that I have in here, I ask them, how are you feeling about your all? And then I give them the option. I give them the option to tell me more. I ask them how they're feeling about their understanding of the course content. And again, you know, this one, I do not I give them the option to just put their name on it, but I also allow them to keep it anonymous if they'd like to. So, assessment, the big takeaways. Make sure you use rubrics. Make sure that you have variety and consistency in your assessments. And then the last area is learner support. These are all your support resources, orientation, your basic contact information, and so on. Orientation, remember we went back to way back in course design. In the first area we talked about those start here modules. This coincides with this right here. So orientation materials not only explain to students how to navigate the LMS, but also your course. And again, they should be very readily identifiable. Students should be able to find them. One of the things I've done, and you have a link to this in the resources, is I've created a 2-page document that just gives you ideas that you can include in a course orientation module. I send out a pre-course communication. In it, because my courses are asynchronous, I tell the students it's an asynchronous class. You're going to get to it by going to Dominican's Canvas site, and I give them a link to it. And then to help them identify my course and to get around it, I do an entire course video, course overview video. This is a longer video. It's normally about 15 minutes long. And basically, I record my screen and I talk and I say, here's our class, click on this class, and I walk them through the entire course. That's why it takes about 15 minutes. Making sure that you have your contact information is very important in any course you have. You want to tell your students acceptable communication methods, how they should contact you, your methods for collecting and returning work, and your response time. And this is just a template of what an instructor page could look like. A lot of professional educators like to have sections, professionally, personally, and what you can expect from the course. One of the things that I do, I create a communication norms for my class, and I make this document available in my orientation. How will I get class information? I tell the students how they're going to get it. How, when, and where will I get feedback? I tell them how they're going to get it. When and where will the lessons be posted? And then how can I reach you with questions, and so on. And I make that available to them. The rubric also asks instructors to explain their role within a course, which is a very interesting one. Basically, they want to know how are you going to be interacting with your students. In my syllabi, I have a teaching philosophy section, and basically toward the end of it, I tell them, as your instructor, my role is to help guide you in your learning journey, provide support, answer clarifying questions, share resources, expand your knowledge. I go on further. I tell them I'm going to be active in this course. You're going to see me in an overview video. You're going to have to, I'm going to be commenting on your blogs. You can expect an email from me with recaps at the end of the week and so on. Course and institutional policies need to be included in your courses. And again, all of this was created by Hillary in libraries, Hillary Meyer. So something like this could be attached in your course as well. And as a friendly reminder, if you don't remember, there is a page on Triton's website that has the course expectations page that you can copy that language and put it into your syllabus. And of course, Triton has a syllabus template as well. Materials in your courses should be used with widely accepted formats, your standard formats, your Microsoft Docs, Microsoft PowerPoint, and so on. You don't want to have any obscure programs that the students can't access. It also asks you to break up large files into smaller segments. Make sure that your multimedia is accessible, embedded, and so on. And if you're asking students to use a specific technology, make sure you're giving them resources on how to get there. Feedback as well. This is very close to the end here. Learners need the ability to give feedback to the instructor regarding course design, content, and presentation. And they must be able to participate anonymously. So these are your end of the course surveys, and they have to be anonymous. This is my end of course survey. It's extremely detailed. I'm asking them tons of questions about my course structure, topics that we're covering, because I'm using this feedback to modify my course moving forward. All right, so at the end of the day, you want to make your course welcoming and helpful for your students. That wraps up that section. And then finally, this what's next part, these are those compulsory standards that I mentioned in the beginning, that if you're developing a course here at Triton, you absolutely have to have these components or your course will not be allowed to proceed. There's 2 pages of that. You can look through those if you're interested, the resources. So wrapping up, I would just suggest to you, go through the presentation, go through the rubric itself, pick one thing to master, and try and move your course from good to great. And then finally, the resources that I have here for you are also on this page as well. On your very first page, I wrote them out for you, so you can see those. And then, Donna, I know there's one online, so I will take the presentation, copy that. Right click. And I will put that right here. Oh, there's more of them. That's good. I will put this in the chat, everyone, so you can grab this. All right. And that is it. So thank you for hanging out with me on this dreary afternoon.